Hey everyone, and welcome to another Cranio family vlog. Every day in the month of September, we are tackling another question about craniosynostosis to try to spread awareness. Today we're talking about things that you can look for in your ultrasounds to help identify craniosynostosis. Now, thus far this month, we've thrown a lot of information at you about what craniosynostosis is, what to look for, and you may find yourself a little leery because of the statistic of 1 in 2,500. However, there are some things you could look for to put your mind at ease, and keep in mind that there's a higher likelihood that you're going to have a child without craniosynostosis than one with it. But we want to discuss some of the things that we have learned over the last 5 years that you can look for in an ultrasound to help prepare you in the event that you have a child with craniosynostosis.
Right, and one of the first things I learned was in a typical ultrasound, the level of imaging that they use typically isn't strong enough to catch craniosynostosis. So if you are worried or interested for whatever reason in kind of digging a little deeper in those ultrasounds, you will want to tell the technician ahead of time. You might even want to schedule a longer appointment with a doctor who is specifically trained in detecting a more detailed result with clearer imaging, where you can tell more of the fusion of bones earlier on. And because the vast majority of children who are diagnosed with craniosynostosis aren't diagnosed until birth. And so the vast majority, even with ultrasounds, it goes by undetected and they just don't know. And so you will need to ask more specifically from the beginning, this is what I'm looking for. And to have somebody who has specifically been trained, I would say even specifically trained by a craniofacial surgeon, so that they know the markers they're looking for within the skull and maybe within some of the major joints within the bones, so that they can be looking for that specifically. And beyond that, it also depends on how far along you are. There's a much greater chance as you move along your pregnancy. Our craniofacial surgeon said past even 34 weeks, 36 weeks, you want to have it later on for the most accurate testing within ultrasounds. So there really isn't a lot you can know earlier on from the first trimester, second trimester. There has to be quite a level of development within the bones to even detect that fusion.
Right, we had a really good doc taking a look at all the ultrasounds, and we did notice a large uptick in not only the number of ultrasounds that we had, but the length of the ultrasounds that we had.
Yes.
With both David and Jacob because of Zoe. The most average ultrasound is usually about 15 or 20 minutes, and the bulk of ours were the long ultrasounds, which take about 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm. We had an hour scheduled, and they spent 45 minutes of actively going through every bone that they could detect within the ultrasound, and then another 10 to 15 minutes discussing with us what they saw. So it's much more in depth than a typical ultrasound.
That was right around 14 weeks, and then again at 23 or 24 weeks before the doctor even began to say, I'm not seeing any signs of craniosynostosis. Mm-hmm. We'll look again later, but I'm feeling better about this one. I'm not seeing the things I normally would see. But like Katie said, that it really wasn't until like 33 weeks or so that where the doctor finally said, I'm not seeing anything that I would see, but even then he did give the caveat that we really won't know anything until this child is born. So with that, in a very short time frame of less than 10 minutes, you have learned what you can look for in an ultrasound to see if your child that you were expecting has cranio. Again, we know that the staggering statistic may be reaching some of you at a very uncomfortable time. You may be feeling some little kicks and flutters in your belly, and you're like, oh no, what is this supposed to mean for me? But there are questions you can ask, there are doctors you can talk to, and they are really well versed in what to do. And if you are still worried about it, you can always ask for a second opinion. But if you want to learn more about our journey, always check out our blog at craniofamilyblog.com, where we have over 5 years worth of blogging about being parents, about expecting children, and just the fun times that we have as a family who has a child with craniosynostosis. And with that, we'll see you tomorrow.